Well, hello there. Tom Green coming back at you with some Adobe Experience Design goodness. And today's goodness is getting comfortable with the new 3D Transforms feature of Adobe XD. As you can see here, I have three boxes, red on the top layer, green on the middle layer, and blue on the bottom layer. So they're basically three boxes, one on top of the other. They're all the same size. The only difference is the color has changed. Now, they are not sitting in 3D space. They're just in flat space, which is basically your computer screen. So let's move them into 3D space. To do that, the first thing you want to do is select all of the items and group them. To put this group into 3D space, I come over here and I click this little box. This is the 3D Transforms box or icon, and basically what it does is it turns on 3D Transforms. So if I click it, you see this little weird thing here that looks like, an atom with electrons. Actually, it's called a gizmo. For those of you wondering where that term came from, it actually came from the U.S. Navy during World War II. When they encountered something that they couldn't name, they called it a gizmo. And I suspect this is exactly how this name came to be when Adobe had this icon and we're trying to figure out what to call it. And I'm sure somebody over there said, well, it's just a gizmo, and they went with the name. Now, what the gizmo does is it controls rotation on the X and the Y axis. So if I select that, there's the X axis rotation. And if I drag, the whole thing will rotate. There's the Y axis rotation. And this little dot here, sort of like the nucleus of the molecule, just moves things on the Z axis. And you see that little line going through it? That's the 0 point. Now, basically, the Z axis controls distance, which again may seem to be a bit esoteric, considering a computer screen is an essentially flat space. The way I explain it to my students is to tell them to assume the computer screen itself, the actual screen you're looking at, is the start or the 0 position. So it's that line through the nucleus. If you move it backward, okay, so I'm just going to move it backward, it gets smaller. And the reason for that is you're moving it further away from the viewer. And if you bring it down, you're bringing it closer to the viewer. You're not scaling it, you're just moving it forwards or backwards. You can see the same effect by putting a hand in front of your face and moving it towards or away from your eyes. Now, the other way of controlling this, of course, is just to do it by the numbers. So I'm just going to press 0 here, and the whole thing is back where it started. And by the way, Z-axis is where the power of the 3D transform comes into play. Now, let me show you what I'm talking about. If I select the group and rotate the whole thing on the Y-axis, you can see it's essentially flat. This is because they all have the same Z-axis position of 0. Let's fix that. So I'm going to open the group. I'm going to select the red box, and I'm going to set its Z-axis position to 100. I'm going to leave the green at 0, but I'm going to take the blue and I'm going to move it backwards. Now, if you're going backwards or away from the user, you use a negative number, so minus 100. And this time, if I select the group, and I'm going to rotate it on the X-axis, you can see we've got a nice little spacing here between the objects. Now, you notice how they move around. So you can play with these things if you're feeling crazy. But this is a good way, for instance, of showing cards, images, or whatever, just to give the user an opportunity to see what's there. And it also saves space on the interface, so it's not a bad technique to learn. So what you've learned are the absolute fundamentals of a 3D transform in XD. First off, individual objects, the boxes, groups of objects, the group itself, or the objects in the group can be changed to put space between them using the Z-axis. You can also apply individual 3D transforms, X and Y rotation, in the same manner as I just explained, the group, the objects, whatever. Any 3D transform can be controlled by the Gizmo right here, or by the numbers in the Properties panel. Finally, the only 3D transform property that can't be applied through the Gizmo is Z rotation. You notice I can move it, but it's just moving it on the X and the Y location. If I want to rotate it, I've got to come over here, and if I rotate it by, say, 30 degrees, the whole group rotates. So there you have it, the absolute fundamentals of 3D transforms in Adobe Experience Design.